Hi everyone, welcome back to TLB Station. In today's video, we're going to build a sleek drag and drop image upload feature using JavaScript. It's a quick and modern way to let users upload images with ease. So let's jump right in and get started. First, in HTML, we create a div with the class and e.dataTransfer.files, which will serve as our drag and drop zone. Inside this container, we place an A element with the ID select files that contains the upload icon as an image, making it clickable for file selection. Next, we add a paragraph with drag and drop instructions and include another A element with the ID select files too for selecting files through a link. Below that, we add a paragraph with the class info to display status messages such as file information or errors. Finally, we include a hidden input element of type file with the ID file input. This input is configured to accept only image files and will be triggered when users click on the designated links or drop an image into the container. Next, in the CSS, I styled the upload container to give it a clean and engaging look. I also defined a drag over animation class to animate the container when a file is dragged over it. You can test the animation by adding the drag over animation class directly to the upload container. After that, I styled the individual elements within the container, including how they should look once an image has been uploaded. In JavaScript, we start by defining variables to target key elements. First, we create a variable called uploadContainer that grabs the upload container by its ID. Next, file input for the hidden file input element. We also define select files as an array containing both select files and select files, two elements to handle file selection. Finally, info selects the info element, which will be used to display status messages and information about the uploaded file. Before we add event listeners, we need to know the kinds of events we will need to handle. The click event is triggered when an element, like a button, link, or any clickable item, is clicked by the user. The drag over event is triggered continuously when an item, such as a file or an element, is dragged over a valid drop target. The drag leave event occurs when a dragged item leaves the bounds of a valid drop target. This happens when the user drags the item away from the designated drop zone without dropping it. The drop event occurs when an item being dragged is dropped onto a target element. The change event is triggered when the value of an input, select, or text area element changes and loses focus. For input elements like file inputs, it occurs when a user selects a file. To add event listeners to the select files elements, we use for each to iterate over each element in the select files array and add an event listener of type click that triggers the hidden file input using its click method, allowing users to open the file selection dialog by clicking any of these elements. Next, we add an event listener of type drag over to the upload container. This listener triggers a function with the parameter e, representing the event object. Inside the function, we use e.preventDefault method to prevent the default behavior of the browser, which usually tries to open the file in the browser when dragged over. Then, we add the class dragOverAnimation to the upload container, which will apply the defined animation to the container when a file is dragged over the container. We will also add another event listener to the upload container of type dragLeave, which triggers when the dragged item leaves the container area. Inside the function, we remove the dragOverAnimation class from the upload container, which stops the animation when the dragged item is no longer over the container. And we add another event listener to the upload container of type drop, which is triggered when the user drops a file into the container. And we also remove the drag over animation. And we define a variable called file to access the dropped file using e.dataTransfer.files index 0. Let's break it down. e.dataTransfer. This property provides access to the data being transferred during a drag and drop operation. It holds the file being dragged, and it is used with the drop event. DataTransfer.files. This returns a file list object, which is a list of all the files that were dragged and dropped by the user. Files index 0. We use index 0 to get the first file from the list, as users typically drop one file at a time in this context. Then we pass the file to the handleFile function that we will make to process the uploaded file. Now, we define the handleFile function with a parameter called file, which will handle the processing of the file once it's dropped or selected. Inside the function, we first check if the file exists and if its type starts with image to ensure that it's an image file. If the file is valid, we create a new file reader object called reader. The file reader allows us to read the contents of the file asynchronously. We use the readAsData method of the reader object, passing the image file as the argument. This method reads the file and converts it into a base64 encoded string, which is a data URL format that can be directly used in the source attribute of an image element to display the image. Next, we define the onload event of the reader, which triggers once the file reading is complete. We assign it to a function with a parameter e, which represents the event object that contains the result of the file reading process. Inside the function, we update the upload container's inner HTML with the uploaded image, file details, and a reset button. First, we create an image element, and inside its source attribute, we use the $ with curly braces to embed variables or expressions directly into the string. And we use e.target.result as the value, which is the result of the read operation, and represents the base64 data URL of the uploaded image. Alternatively, we can also use reader.result to achieve the same effect. And we add the class uploaded image to it. Next, we create two paragraph elements with the class info. Inside each paragraph, we add a span with the class info header. The first span is for the file name, and we embed the actual file name using file.name after the span. The second span is for the file size, where we display the file size in kilobytes by dividing file.size by 1024. We then use the toFixed method with the parameter 2 to round the file size to 2 decimal places, ensuring a more readable format. Next, we add a button element with the class reset. This button will allow users to reset or clear the uploaded image and file details from the upload container when clicked. After adding the reset button, we attach an event listener of type click to it, which triggers the resetUploadContainer function when clicked. This allows the user to reset the container back to its original state. In the else section, if the file is not a valid image, we update the info element with a message saying, "Please upload a valid image file." Now, we define the resetUploadContainer function, which resets the contents of the upload container back to its original HTML structure. Now, we add an event listener to the file input element of type change, which is triggered whenever the user selects a file. Inside the event listener, we define a function with a parameter e, representing the event object. We then create a variable called file and assign it the value of e.target.files index 0, which allows us to access the first file selected by the user. You might be wondering why we didn't use e.dataTransfer here. That's because e.dataTransfer is specifically for dealing with files dropped into a container via drag and drop, used in the drop event, whereas e.target.files is for handling file selection from an input element, which is used with the change event. Since we're responding to a file selection event from the file input, we use e.target.files to access the selected file directly. Now pass this file to the handleFile function for further processing. The preventDefault method is invoked as a function, so it requires parentheses for execution. Now if you try to upload an image, it should work, displaying both the file name and file size of the uploaded image. You can also drag and drop images into the upload container, and if you tap the reset button, it will reset the container back to its original state. But now, if you try to upload a file by tapping the upload icon or the select image link, they won't respond. This happens because when we reset the container using resetUploadContainer, it replaces the entire content of the upload container with new HTML, removing all previously attached event listeners. When the DOM gets updated like this, the JavaScript references to elements like select files and select files to are lost. As a result, even though the elements are visually there, they no longer respond because their associated event listeners were removed along with the old DOM elements. To fix this, we need to reattach the event listeners to the new DOM elements after resetting the container. We can simply do this by putting the event listener setup inside a function called initializeEventListener. This function will reattach all the event listeners to the updated DOM elements every time the container is reset. Next, we declare the upload container variable again outside the function for use in the resetUploadContainer function. Inside resetUploadContainer, after updating the inner HTML of the upload container, we call initializeEventListener to reestablish the event listeners for the new elements. Additionally, we also call initializeEventListener when the script first runs to ensure the event listeners are set up properly for the initial state of the upload container. Now, if you try to upload an image and then reset the container, you will be able to upload images again. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to drop a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.